Kravitz. If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Hello and welcome to episode 311 of the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your proud host, Howard Kravitz. Thank you for joining us a little bit earlier today, as it's, of course, Thanksgiving tomorrow, and so we're going at a very special time. Thanks for joining us, because we are going to be discussing many things, including the unbelievable weekend of stakes at Churchill Downs with Kevin Kerstein of Publicity at Churchill Downs Incorporated. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button on the bottom right hand side of the screen. After you do that, hit the notification bell so that you know when new content will arise, and smash that like button. We greatly appreciate. Of course, you can reach me on Twitter at HKravitz, right there on the name tag, or X, whatever we're calling it these days. Scrolling at the bottom of the screen, HKravitzHorse at gmail.com. You can, of course, listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. We have fantastic power picks below the video player. Check out information about our power picks tip sheet. Very profitable, very inexpensive. We've got a great website, of course, as well, hhhracingpodcast.com. And follow us on Instagram as well, instagram.com/HHH Racing Podcast. All right, we got a lot of things. We got a special guest there in the background waiting to make his first appearance here on the HHH Racing Podcast. Before I bring on our special guest, let me bring on from the East Coast of Maryland my wonderful co-host, Mr. Pete Visco. Pete, how you doing today?
I'm great. How's it going, Howard? Happy Thanksgiving.
Right. Very excited.
Yeah,
the turkey's not quite in the oven yet, but it's getting
a little early. Yeah, it's a little early start. I don't think we need to cook it that long yet, but it's all right. It's close.
Listen, I'm pumped up. I'm really excited. We got a lot to discuss, and we have a guest waiting in the background with beautiful Churchill in the background. I know the races, the Churchill card, they have actually a card today as well. And I think the race is off, actually, race 8. So I see Kevin in the background. Maybe he's got a bet on someone. I don't know. It looks a little bit distracted. So I don't know if I should bring him on right this very second, but I think he'll be okay. Pete, we got a lot to talk about. Major stake races, big time news this weekend, of course, at Churchill. And then also Turfway Park is opening up, and I'm very excited about their meet. There's a lot of things that are very exciting going on with Churchill Downs right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's usually, for a lot of people, it's sort of a quieter time, but that doesn't have to be the case. There's always racing. There's some good stuff happening. There's still good stakes races between the Breeders' Cup and the end of the year. So no time but the present to keep on playing, right? And that's why we do these shows, to keep everybody interested and to keep everybody talking about these good races we have to finish out the year.
And before we bring on our special guest, let's bring on, looks like he's in the car. I think he's ready to go. Looks like he might be ready to go. Let's bring on from the Saratoga Special and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and a car of a brand that we do not know. Maybe he'll let us know. Paul Halloran. Paul, how you doing today?
There he is.
Paul,
hey, Howard, how you doing? Yes.
I'm doing all right.
Yeah, am I on mute? Can you hear
me?
No,
we
can hear you. Just a little,
can hear you. Yeah.
A little dodgy with the Wi-Fi, but we can hear you.
Yeah, I got a football game tonight and another one tomorrow. So thank God for Bob Mullins. It's his car and his phone. So
all right.
Bob's gets the MVP of today so far.
All right. So we'll deal with Paul's a little, hopefully the sound is okay. The video's a little bit shaky, but I think we'll be all right. Real quick, let's bring on some of our wonderful guests in the chat. We got Smoggy Froggy. Happy Thanksgiving. Yes. I'll give some Thanksgiving announcements at the end, but Smoggy Froggy, thank you very much. Michael Austin, hello podcast. Happy Thanksgiving. Hope your lives are filled with joy and things. Wow.
Thank
Definitely,
you, Michael.
Appreciate that very much. We got Mike here, Carmoli. Happy Thanksgiving, Howard, from one high school teacher. There we go, Mike, to another. Greatly appreciate. Hope you're enjoying the week off. We got Irene Bertoli is here. Oh, still live. We should bring on Kevin right now. Still live in the late pick 5, but needs Zawish to win in a few minutes. Well, good luck, Irene. We'll have to talk about Zawish with Kevin. Maybe he can give us a little insight there. Anyway, we've got a lot of great people watching. Let's bring him on right now, guys. We're big fans of Churchill Downs, of course, big supporters of them. And I had the pleasure of meeting Darren Rogers and Kevin Kerstein along with Paul last year at Churchill Downs for the fantastic Derby and Oaks weekend. But this is his first appearance on the HHH Racing podcast. So let's not let him wait any longer. Publicity from Churchill Downs Incorporated. Here he is, Mr. Kevin Kerstein. Kevin, how you doing today?
Man, that's, some big intros there. I'm kind of nervous now, but really happy to be joining you guys. Happy Thanksgiving. And, I was going to complain about the weather out here at Churchill, but when you got, Paul up there in Saratoga where I saw they got some snow, and you, Howard, out in Illinois where it's certainly nice and cold, I really can't complain being here beneath the Twin Spires on a chilly November Wednesday.
Yeah, the guys on the FanDuel crew looked very cold. They're all bundled up and everything. I know it's a little bit chilly down there, but hey, it is almost December, Kevin. So even in Kentucky, it's going to cool off. Kevin, first of all, thank you very much for coming on. We really appreciate it. As I said, there's one more race to go at Churchill today. So I wanted to back up the starting time and make sure people haven't got their bets in. Is Zowish live, by the way, in the last race? Because Irene needs Zowish, Kevin.
Well, that's so I'm located literally on the backside, right at the 3/4 pole, and so I can't see a thing of what happens on the front side. So
it looks like no, because Irene just said her pick 5 just died. So apparently Zowish did not win the race.
Oh, Irene.
Napa Candy, Vicky Oliver.
Okay.
All right.
1742.
Well, heck of a trainer. Listen, Kevin, first of all, I want to thank you coming on. Myself and Paul, who just stepped out for a minute, he's in the car on his way to refereeing a football game, actually announcing a football game. Him and I had the pleasure of going to the Derby and the Oaks for the first time last year, thanks to Churchill, yourself, and Media Credential, and we had an incredible time. We covered a lot of races, the walkover, the paddock, which of course is going to be brand new, coming for the 150th. So just hats off to Churchill Downs for allowing us to be there with a credential. We look forward to going next year and many years to come, maybe with a bigger crew for our thousands of fans. We brought back a lot of video and some interviews and whatnot. So it was really the way you guys treated the media is absolutely first class. Just want to make sure you guys knew that right from the start.
Well, thanks. Really appreciate that. And, it's sort of a two-person crew handling 2,000 media members on Derby between Darren and myself. And so we appreciate comments like that. They don't go unnoticed. And, we're really looking forward to having you back at Derby 150 in 160 or so days.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And we, by the way, just said we can talk off air, but I'd love to get on the distribution list if you have that for the media. But just throw that out there as well. I'll send you an email and make sure you have a few requests. But anyway, the 150th, let's just talk, before we talk about this weekend, Pete, let's talk about the 150th Derby, because it sort of feels like, Kevin, this is the unofficial start. You've got, of course, the goldenrod for the girls. You got the Kentucky Jockey Club, and then there's another pool also coming out this weekend, and there's points on the line for the Oaks and the Derby. It sort of feels like this is the real beginning, Kevin, of Derby 150 weekend.
Yeah, it really is, and we kicked off the road to the Derby in September with the Iroquois, and that's still when you have some of those early season 2-year-olds that are still maturing and seeing if they're legitimate 2-turn horses. And now as we get into the later part of this year and leading into, the winter time, you're really starting to see the true 2-turn Derby prospects. And we see that a lot with the 8 horses that are in the Kentucky Jockey Club on Saturday, as well as those other, Stars of Tomorrow races that we're going to have on Saturday. There's so many, developing 2-year-olds that we've had on the backside here at Churchill Downs. And, here in the Kentucky circuit, we've carded the most maiden special weight races for 2-year-olds out of any circuit in the country. And so they've really started to converge here at Churchill Downs, in the springtime in late May, early June. And so you get your eyes on some of these early Derby type prospects. But, right now it's really starting to get into the crunch time. You're starting to see some of the horses that have shown some promise that we've used in this Kentucky Derby Future Wager pool number 2. And, I'm sure there's a lot of unraced horses that are still out there. But, you're starting to see the names that you want to keep your eye on moving into next year.
Kevin, last year we made a sort of a pretty famous bet on this show. Myself and Paul were involved in Tapit Trace. We had 60 to 1 on Tapit Trace, and although of course he didn't win the Derby, that was quite the journey for us to see him go off as, I believe, second choice at 60 to 1, and he was like 4 to 1 in the Derby or whatever. So that was quite exciting. The Derby future. I've got my eye on a horse I'm going to talk about on the show a little bit later. That Think opened at, I believe, 80 to 1 I don't want to mention the name yet, but anyway, the future pool is always a lot of fun. Two other things I'd like to talk about before the races this weekend. The Derby 150, the new paddock. It's very exciting. I've seen, obviously it's being in the process of being built. It looks like it's going to be absolutely fabulous. Can you give everyone a little bit of update or preview of what to expect with the new paddock that I believe is going to be opening up, right before the Derby next year?
Yeah, it's well underway. There's almost probably 175 to 200 workers that are working in the paddock every single day to try and prepare to get ready, and it'll be ready in early April for Derby 150. And it's really going to be the most, I think, transformative project that we've done here at the track, at least in my tenure.
I can't hear him or see them.
We've renovated so many different areas, and the paddock is going to be almost like a coliseum. Think of it. It's going to be, 3 stories of seats and, different seating areas on the first floor. There's going to be, seating for sort of every single type of customer, whether you're a railbird, you want to come out and just hang out and look around the paddock. You're going to be able to do so on different observation decks and different seats. Plus there's some club levels beneath. It's really sort of indescribable. And the best way to do it is sort of look at this project is derby150.com. There's some great renderings and some great virtual tours that you can do on that website, derby150.com, and really get a glimpse of this $200 million paddock project. Over my shoulder right now is this temporary paddock that we've used in the off season outside of Derby, and it's really, a normal looking paddock if you watch the races on the Churchill Downs simulcast signal. But wait until you see this thing, Howard. It's going to be unbelievable, and you can get a glimpse of that at derby150.com.
Pete, I don't mean to I don't mean to hog the time here, Pete.
No, please go ahead. You start with these. I'll have a question maybe later.
All right, no problem. Kevin, sorry about Paul. He's having some issues with Wi-Fi in the car. Our other great co-host, who, by the way, is writing a book on Cody's Wish. If you're not familiar with Paul Harron, our co-host, and what a great story that was. And everyone that's listening live, we got many people watching, listening right now. Kevin, if you have any questions for Kevin Kerstein of Churchill Downs Incorporated, please put them in the chat. Let's bring up a topic that needs to be discussed, and I'm sure you won't mind discussing it. And it relates to the question from Will Craig that I'm going to put up on the screen at the bottom. And it's the turf course situation, which, obviously you guys would like to see the turf course, being run. On the bottom, Will says, are they going to replace or renovate the turf course? For our great fans, Kevin, who support Churchill Downs and all the associated tracks with CDI, can you give everyone a bit of an update first on what might happen this weekend? Is there any chance that the scheduled races will be on the turf? And then any idea, if you have a crystal ball, what's going to be happening going forward?
First of all, no one wants this turf course, fixed more than we do. And so, I get everyone. I'm a gambler myself. I get everyone's frustrations, and it's sort of still a day-to-day situation over these next couple of days of racing. The turf crew was out there this morning putting out the temporary rail, which would be in lane 4 for the races tomorrow, which featured the Cardinal. And so, we got rain on Tuesday. The sun hasn't poked out until about mid-afternoon today to try and dry some of the course out. And so it's literally a day-by-day sort of situation on this turf course to close out the meet. We're hoping to get in these races the next couple of days, but we're just going to wait and see what happens. And, we have lots of experts both on the racetrack front and turf course front, and our jockeys too. We've constantly had contact with the jocks room, and they walk the turf course, as well as our turf consultants, our experts, our regular crew here at Churchill Downs, and we're just going to make what decision we deem necessary. And so that information will be released as soon as I get word on my X account at Horse Racing KK. So give you plenty of time to gamble and handicap the races. It's sort of frustrating when I know you want to handicap for one surface or the other, but maybe just take a little bit of extra time to do sort of selections for both dirt and turf leading into these last couple of days of racing. But it's still day to day. We're hopeful if we can get them on, we'll get them on.
Well, look, I want to make this very clear. I've had great experiences with Churchill. Safety is the utmost importance, right? I mean, the last thing you want is horses running on the turf. They're slipping, they're sliding, falls, whatever. That is the last thing, Pete, that anyone wants. So as much as we'd like to see turf, obviously they need to do what's right by the horses, number one, the horsemen, the jockeys. I mean, Pete, that is really, especially in this age of HISA and everything else, I mean, you got to do what's best for those people first.
Yeah, of course. And I assume Kevin and everyone at CDI thinks the same way. And I guess if you look at it from a gambling perspective, it's a little frustrating, like any track where you're like, is there even a chance it's going to run? Do I put the time in, or do I is there ever thought, Kevin, of saying, you know what, it's just too much trouble day in and day out. We're just going to not card turf races for a bit because it's too much trouble trying to figure out one way or the other, or is that just not a consideration at all?
We did that last year. When we had some woes on the turf courses, and so it's always an option. And look, we were optimistic on getting these races on, and just sort of playing things day by day. And if you notice on some of these turf races, as you got the tractors behind me, so not sure my audio is the best, but
no worries.
You're seeing some dirt horses that are taking a gamble entering these turf races. And so you're seeing that you saw some main track onlys that got re-entered in dirt races, or taking the gamble to try and get in if they're on the main track. And so you'll see a lot of these mixed in the next couple of days of racing. And so we're hopeful if we can get them on, we'll get them on. But if not, there's plenty of dirt horses that are in the body of those fields that will help keep those field sizes.
Well, the nice thing, Kevin, I've talked about on this show many times, the Churchill Downs dirt course is about as favorable of a dirt course for turf horses, I think, in the country. I mean, we could go on and on about, Animal Kingdom and Barbaro. And I mean, Kajira is a really nice filly that's taken well to not only the dirt, but, the Churchill dirt. I mean, so turf horses can run on the Churchill dirt course a lot more than other dirt courses. Do you find that to be true? Because in my years of handicapping, I find that absolutely. Maybe it's the composition of the dirt or whatever, but turf horses can absolutely run on this dirt course at Churchill.
It's funny that you bring that up, because the late John Asher, who would be his birthday today, that was always his biggest handicapping angle. He loved horses with a little green in their dam side, especially. And so he always thought that horses took kindly to it. And I never really noticed until he brought that up to me about 7-8 years ago. And you know what? It's absolutely true. You sort of see some horses that take more kindly to this dirt surface than some of the other dirt surfaces around the country. So wouldn't be surprised if you see some of that turfy pedigree, especially on the bottom side, that'll run well if they're off the turf.
For sure. Kevin, let's talk about this weekend. We've got, of course, tomorrow, let's go chronologically. Real nice card tomorrow, as you mentioned. And then the grade stakes kicking for sure. Friday, you got the Clark, which to me, and we're going to handicap it when you leave us here in a few minutes, but I think is a fantastic race. Every year it's one of my favorite races. Pete, if you do remember last year, I loved Proxy, who came through and won, who had a fantastic year. This year's edition of the Clark, Kevin, is not only a big field as expected, it's very competitive with a lot of fresh faces and some horses that might be a factor in the handicap division next year. So I think this year's Clark, which will be Friday, is a really great race.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you mentioned with tomorrow's card for Thanksgiving Day with two stakes, the Cardinal and the Fall City. Annually, the Fall City, I love this race for the fillies and mares, and Kidjara, who you talked about a couple of minutes ago. She looks to be, one of the top distaffers in next year. And Phil Bauer sort of kicked himself of the way that he's managed her this year. They thought about running in the Breeders' Cup distaff and ended up going to the Mother Goose, but she's a very exciting prospect. 12 races on the card tomorrow for Thanksgiving Day. It's a huge day at the track. 8,000 pounds of turkey will be served tomorrow to the guests here. Just an amazing amount of food that goes on here at the track. And then Friday with the Clark is one of the best days of gambling here outside of Derby Week. It's just massive pools on Clark Day, and it's sort of like maybe the wives send their husbands out to the track so they can go shopping, and you sort of see that in the pools, big pools all day. And it's the Clark featuring First Mission, who's the morning line favorite at just 3-1. He won an allowance race at Keeneland. He's obviously on his resume. He won the Lexington and was the favorite in the Preakness before he had his setback. But he's sort of one that could use this race to propel himself to maybe the Pegasus next year and some of the bigger races, maybe internationally after that. And then you also have, Il Miracolo, who's, an accomplished horse in his own right. He's a grade 3 winner. He's shipped in here from Florida. The New York bred Straight Arrow. Up and down this field, it's a very competitive race. And, after the Breeders' Cup Classic, there's a lot of not a lot of horses that run back on just 3 weeks rest. And you're going to have one horse in here, Stage Raider, the number 9, who just didn't run a step in that Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, who's going to test 2 turns again. And so you really don't have a lot of those horses that are still in training that maybe bypass the Classic that aren't in this race.
Yeah, First Mission is. Oh, sorry, Pete. Did you want to say something there?
No. I was just sort of agreeing with Kevin because that's exactly what this field looks like. In First Mission is probably where we'd all want to talk about anyway, just because he's the one who he's the buzz horse from multiple different points, but he's never been able to sort of show his stuff on a consistent basis. But we'll see if this kicks it off, like Kevin was saying.
And then Kevin, Saturday at the Stars of Tomorrow too. You got the Goldenrod and Jockey Club points for the Oaks and the Derby online. Why don't you briefly? And then there's really nice race before the Goldenrod and after the Jockey Club. 6.5 furlongs, I think, both of them for the boys and the girls, including a very exciting runner that I like. That I can't wait to see what he does off his debut. Booth, I believe, the name of the horse from the outside. Talk about what's happening Saturday, Kevin, at Churchill.
Yeah, the Stars of Tomorrow cards have been inaugurated since 2005, and since then, they've produced more than 50 Grade 1 winners. You've had Oaks winners and Secret Oath and Pretty Mischievous, Super Saver for the Derby, Gun Runner, multiple horses of the year. All of those horses have run on these Stars of Tomorrow cards, which, the opening day of the fall meet is the first Stars of Tomorrow. Then we will back 4 weeks later for the second Stars of Tomorrow, all 2-year-old races. And you're right, Howard. Booth is probably the headliner that I'm most looking forward to seeing in the Ed Brown Stakes, which will go as race 9. It's an all-stakes late pick 4 sequence in races 9, 10, 11, and 12. And so the Ed Brown kicks things off, and then you'll go with the Goldenrod, a mile and a 16th on the road to the Kentucky Oaks. Race 11 is the Kentucky Jockey Club. That's on the road to the Kentucky Derby. And then the 12th race, the Fern Creek, which will close things out. So it's a fun sequence. But Booth looks to be just such a dynamic son of Matoli. He's run, a very fast speed figure on his debut. Steve Asmussen keeps him sprinting at the 6.5 furlongs. He said, I don't think he can't stretch out, but he's keeping him at this 1 turn just for now. So I wouldn't be surprised maybe in the wintertime, especially down in Oaklawn, if we'll see him on the road to the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, and then Sunday you have the Commonwealth, which a Grade 3, which hopefully we're on the turf. We'll have to see how that goes. Kevin, real quick before we let you go, let's talk about Turfway. I'm very excited about Turfway. I bet Turfway quite a bit last year, and you had to have some deep pockets because, wow, with those pick 5s, difficult. Kevin, the Tapeta I'm a big fan of. And I'm not just saying that because you're on the screen. I used to be not a huge fan of synthetics. I'm from Chicago. I learned, with Arlington, of course, they had synthetic, and it's really a safe surface. I actually have a few horses that I have small ownership pieces of that are going to be running at Turfway this winter. So I'm very excited. They've all they're training. The trainers have been raving about the surface, and the field sizes are huge. And a lot of big name trainers run at Turfway. It's really becoming a major winter meet throughout the country. Talk a little bit about, and a new announcer as well. Talk a little more about Turfway coming up.
Yeah, it's really exciting. The Kentucky circuit has certainly become a year-round circuit, and you've often seen trainers after the Churchill Fall meet closes or after the Churchill Downs Spring meet closes, they go north to Saratoga, or they'll head south in the wintertime to Fairgrounds or Oaklawn or Gulfstream Park. And the purse structure now here in Kentucky is allowing trainers to keep so many of their top prospects here at home and keeping a year-round circuit. So annually at Turfway, you're featuring with Mike Maker, Steve Asmussen, Brad Cox. They've always had barns there, but now you're seeing some of their better prospects being left there. Idiomatic, who won the Breeders' Cup Distaff, started her career at Turfway Park for Brad Cox. And so that's just the type of horsepower that we're having up north in Florence, Kentucky. And it's so exciting. And you mentioned the difficultness of Turfway's gambling product, and it's all full fields that signed on for Wednesday night's opening program. Next Wednesday, all fields of 12. There's a bunch of also eligibles. If you're right, it's just those pick 5 payouts are massive. There's a low 14% takeout pick 4 if you're interested in playing that. 15%
We'll crack bombs away at Turfway.
Yes, exactly. I think the average win payout last year was like $14.72 for a $2
awesome
bet. And so, it's just a great circuit, and you're seeing a lot of the top trainers keep some great prospects here at home and up north. And you're going to see in the jock colony too. I think there were 52 jockeys in the Turfway condition book that are going to be in that jocks room. Adam Biscuits is a new name, Declan Cannon, Gerardo Corrales. It'll be a great jocks room, great trainer colony, and I'm looking forward to gambling on next Wednesday's card, Wednesday through Saturday nights through March the 30th.
Well, Kevin, we got to get you back on for an inevitable Pick 5 carryover at Turfway. What's the key to Turfway for our great viewers and listeners out there? I mean, I think it's a real even in general. It's even. Now, would Arlington have the synthetic? It is winter. So I found when it's a little bit colder, sometimes that the Tapeta tightens up a little bit and speed plays a little bit better. I don't know if you've seen that or not. Any quick insights for the handicappers out there on how to win money at Turfway?
One of the things that I'm looking forward to in the 2-year-old race is at least to kick off the meet. So Turfway was open for year-round training this year for the first time. And so I'm looking to see, some of the horses that have been based up at Turfway to have works on that Tapeta surface and, maybe show some speed in those works. So at least that they're taking to the surface well up there. And so you'll have a lot of the dirt horses that are based here at Churchill, sort of a question mark if they can handle the Tapeta, but those that are based up at Turfway and some of those major barns, I think that's going to be a handicapping angle for me, at least to kick off the meet.
Hey, Kev, I was going to say, are there any tracks where horses coming in from those tracks that do well at Turfway, or is it pretty even all the way around?
You see a little bit of the Presque Isle shippers that come in and do well, at least in the sort of the mid-level races there. I'd look at some of the Billy Morey barn. So he shipped up to Presque Isle and came back to Turfway where he was based. He's pretty good in those claiming type level of races, but I'd sort of lean towards the bigger outfits in the claiming races dropping in class. You'll see a lot of the Ohio horses and the Ohio trainers that maybe have horses drop from allowance into a claiming tag, but even an allowance race in Ohio compared to a $30,000 race in Kentucky, for example, is sort of an even playing field. Yeah. So, maybe not take those Ohio bred droppers as much as you may have the Kentucky breds, Kentucky based horses that are going to run in some of those lower level races.
Nice. The good info. Thank you.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to Turfway. Churchill, Kevin, before we let you go, Tom Espinoza, who's from San Francisco, has a thought on the bottom. Just go all in your pick 3, and you can definitely hit it for sure. I'm sure you guys would love that. Increase that handle. Any final thoughts, Kevin, about this weekend or anything you'd like to share with our viewers and listeners? And once again, thank you very much for coming on, and make sure you say hello to Darren Rogers for us, and we cannot wait for Derby 150. But any final thoughts about this weekend or anything you'd like to discuss with CDI right now?
Look, we just really appreciate everyone's support from the gambling aspect. It's the bread and butter of the sport, and I know there's a lot of gamblers that are listening to this podcast, so we really appreciate your support throughout the year here at Churchill Downs, and we can't wait to get underway at Turfway this winter. The gambling product, as we said the last few minutes, is just going to be a lot of fun races this winter, and hopefully we can have some deep pockets leading into Derby 150 next year.
That's the plan. We'll need it because it's always going to be a great weekend of racing, of course, for Derby 150. Kevin Kerstein from Churchill Downs Incorporated Publicity. Really appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. We look forward to talking to you again, especially when it comes down to media credentials and whatnot for Derby 150 weekend. Thanks a lot. Have a great weekend, Kevin.
All right. Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Happy Thanksgiving.
All right. Kevin Kerstein does a great job at Churchill Downs. We really appreciate the time from him. And, look, they're in a tough spot with the turf course. I don't want to belabor the point. They know. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to take him at his word. It sounds like it's possible this weekend. I would tend to doubt it, but, we'll see. I know they're not going to expect to get more rain from what I've seen. It is going to be colder. I mean, who knows, Pete? On TV, I don't know if I was watching Churchill today. I didn't do a lot of betting at Churchill, but I was watching it. It looks good. And the fact that the rails have come out, I think means they're going to try to run on it. They're running the safest part of the course, which has been run on, but it's going to have to be perfect for them to run on it, I would think, based on the scenarios we talked about.
Yeah, there's not much you can do, really. I mean, you can handicap the race, or you just say, you know what, I'm not going to put the time in until, say, I see scratches and they talk about changes and they say whether they're going to run. I mean, as long as you sort of know in advance, at least, it's not like where, hey, 3 minutes before the race, we decide we're going to take it off. As long as you know in advance, you can take the time, you can handicap. I guess the biggest thing for me was when I looked at a couple of these races we're going to talk about was, and we do say that the turf horses do transition decent to the dirt, but you still don't know who's going to be kept in. So you look at these, it's a big field. They all look like turf horses in most of them, or at least a good like 85%. So you look at them and go, okay, some of these have really bad dirt form, but would they stay in because they actually have some experience on the dirt? You just can't predict that. So you just sort of play it by ear.
From the wonderful Paul Halloran, he's now in a press box, but music is blaring. It's just not going to work out for him today. So, Paul, that's okay. He does want to make sure that we all said that he absolutely loves First Mission, and then he said, obviously,
Obviously.
in the Clark. But Pete, I'm going to make an executive decision. I think we're going to skip the details of the turf races and just go through the 3 dirt races because I don't want to. We don't know who's going to be in the fields. We don't even know if it's going to be on turf or not. I think it's just in everyone's best interest just to go ahead and talk about the 3 grade 2 dirt races, the one Friday, the Clark, and then the 2 big ones on Saturday, the Goldenrod and the Jockey Club. So I think we're going to go that route, Pete. So the first race, let's talk about the Clark first, which is Friday. And let me bring that up on the screen here real quick. Present. Oh, we're good right now. Let's do it right now, Pete. We already brought up. Actually, let me bring you back in also, so everyone knows we are not handicapping a pick 5 particular sequence today based on the holiday and again all the question marks going on with the turf course. We're just going to hit on the 3 big grade 2 races of the weekend. The first one is Friday. It's the Clark grade 2, like I said, 5:48 Eastern Standard Time. Field of 10. The Moorline favorite is number 2, First Mission, Pete, for Cox and Size, a horse we've talked about quite a bit. I see 3-1 on the morning line. There's no way in hell this horse is going to be 3-1. I'm going to say 9-5 if I had to pick an odds number out there. Let me go and bring in our banners on the screen because I'm going to bring those up for the Clark. The banners are going to look a little different because we don't have a pick 5. There it is. There's our picks. Pete, you and Paul are going with First Mission. I have First Mission in second. As I bring up the PPs, what does you like about First Mission, especially in this year's Clark?
I mean, it's a tough one, and I agree the odds threw me because what I was thinking more even morning line, sort of 9-5. I didn't expect 3-1. I feel like that's a pipe dream, like you said. But
yeah.
I think when you look at a race like this, there's some decent quality horses in here for sure. But First Mission is the only one that looks like or has been talked about or has the potential, and you see the connections, sort of back that up, where this horse can actually move to the top and be like one of the top few in the handicap division next year. And you can't really say that about, I don't think, anyone else in the field. I mean, they could surprise you. So you look at this horse and go, okay, if he's as good as people expect him to be, this is where you start showing it. I mean, that last race was an allowance race against a field probably should have beat, and it was a slow pace, so it wasn't as easy as it maybe could have been. But this is the horse that you expect, right? I don't know I know I see you picked against him, but don't you think that in this field he's the only one who sort of has I can be near the top of the handicap division sort of potential?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. He was absolutely desperate to beat Command Performance, who's a horse that's becoming somewhat famous on this.
Hey, he's a monster now. What are you talking about?
Around, you saw First Mission there get up on just pure class alone. I mean, if you'd ask me who has the best chance of moving forward in this race, it's definitely First Mission. First, I was just trying to get a little cheeky. First Mission is the horse to beat. I like this horse. I think this horse would have won the Preakness for sure. We'll never know, of course. He's the one to beat.
But he doesn't lay over from a figure standpoint, he doesn't lay over the field. So if his name was something else and it wasn't First Mission and he was just some other horse who had this same resume and you had never heard of him as far as the Preakness, like we didn't know he wasn't supposed to be an it kind of horse. If you looked at this, you go, okay, he looks like maybe the best horse, but he's not unbeatable. He doesn't look like he lays over. So I think because he's First Mission and because of what he's done or what he tried to do, we think of him as maybe well above this field. But again, on the racetrack, he's there and he's better, but I don't think he's so much better that it's a foregone conclusion.
The one thing when I looked up and down this field, if there's a horse that's going to get a 100+ buyer and really step up, it's this horse. It's just, there aren't a lot of horses to me, Pete, that can really step up their game. Like they are who they are. Now,
agree. Yep.
The only other horse that I think can do it is the one I've picked on top, and that's the number 1 Straight Arrow. I looked at this race a lot, Pete. I'm like, okay, who can beat First Mission? And I'm not gonna go through every horse, but like El Miracolo, I don't know. I mean, just got a perfect trip when he won. I don't know if he's good enough. Gasoline, maybe. I know we both have this horse third, but I mean, where did that last race come from? And he got a dream trip in that race.
Yeah.
Trademark's big efforts have, again, been really good trips, and there's a lot of speed in this race. Like, Film Star's got the numbers, but again, there's a lot of pace in this race, and he's sort of just a grindy
Yeah,
type.
he's all his win, like for me, all his wins came wire to wire, and I just don't think he's going to get a clean, easy wire to wire trip in this field. There's enough speed in here. You see the 7 right there is plenty of speed to push Trademark. I should say, sorry, not Trademark. I meant.
I just looked up and down this field. I looked at the 10 pretty closely, Blue Devil. I was
Me
ready
too.
to put him on top, Pete. And then I watched his last race, which was good. But I mean, again,
I didn't like
just
it.
An absolute dream trip. And he saved ground, and Clapton and Trademark still beat him. I was like, I don't know. So
I wanted to like that horse until I watched the replay. The same thing where I was like, I think this might be the one I'm going to put in, even if it's in the second spot. But then I watched the replay and I was a little underwhelmed. Pete,
I don't know if Straight Arrow is good enough, but I'll tell you what, he's in great form. And I realize the last 2 races were in the mud, and maybe that's what's moved this horse up. Mike Deaney's an excellent trainer. I've talked about Mike Dean before. He used to race a lot of Arlington. He's a Chicago guy. This horse looks like he can stalk. He can close a little bit. He's in great form. He's blowing these New York bred fields away. And again, there's just no one in this race that really, other than First Mission, that I'm really scared of. And so, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. So I'm going to take a shot with Straight Arrow, hoping that he's going to. The fact that Giroux is on this horse, by the way, really got my attention. Here's a question for you, Pete, before we move on to the Saturday races. I looked it up. How many times do you think Giroux has ridden for Mike Deaney in the last 5 years? Because I looked it up.
I didn't even look it up. I would say 2. Is it 0? 1? Okay.
And he did win in a turf race at 6-1. So
nice.
Anyway,
there you go.
That catches my attention, because that Drew's not going to jump on a horse that can't win. He's going to save ground. He's got tactical speed. The main question is, can he handle a fast dirt course? He was improving, Pete, before the last 3 races. So I'd like to think yes. And I'm going to get, 6-1. Why not? I'm trying to beat someone.
I mean,
trying to find someone to beat First Mission.
I like it. I mean, you see, I have the horse in second, and I think the rail could maybe work out a trip with some of the speed from the outside, but it's pretty tactical. And then you just look, and the improvement came when stretched out. Now, the first one was on the turf when he stretched out, so you sort of can ignore that one a bit. And it's not like he ran bad. He was just too far back and couldn't make a move. But then again, if it weren't that the last 2 were on the mud, he's got a 4:55 Tomlinson on the wet. So you just look at that and go, man, is it just the mud? Because those figures came out of nowhere. And you look at that and go, usually you would say, I want to see it on a fast track, like you said. But in a race like this, where you're looking at a favorite where you go, can we beat a favorite who's going to take a ton of money? I don't think this is a bad one. Or if you just say, look, I'm going to just go cold and do a cold First Mission, or it doesn't even have to be cold. You can Dutch it, I should say, but just in case. But I think if you're just looking to, I think this one has upside because his most improved races have happened after something. Like he moved to the distance. He's out of Arrogate, so the distance is generally going to be his friend. So at least when you see that, you feel like there's a reason for the improvement. So I'm with you 100%. I really like that one too. The 1-2.
I just got a text from Kevin Kerstein, literally right now. Let's see. He said, "Oh wow, interesting. Tomorrow they are on the turf for the Cardinal Stakes.
Nice.
But they're going to be off. But the other 2 carded turf races tomorrow are going to be off the turf. But the fact that they're going to be on the turf at all is a great sign for the weekend. I still am going to stick to my decision to not look at those other 2 races
which is a shame, because I think that first race, the whatever that is, the 10th, the Mrs. Revere, that's a really good race. That's a good field. It's a good even field. So I really hope that one does stay on, just because it's a good race. Yeah,
for sure. But they are going to be on the turf, which is a great sign. Does that mean they're going to be on the turf Friday and Saturday? Who knows? But the Ben and Boozin boys will be happy to hear that, because they handicapped tomorrow's card
Yeah,
on the 50th episode. Once again, congratulations to those guys. So I will let them know. There we go, straight off the presses, Pete. There you go. That's a
I love it.
thank you to
Love it.
Kevin
Breaking news. Thanks,
Yeah,
Kevin.
there you go. As I send back a text real quick, any other horses you want to talk about before we move on to Saturday out of this race? You've got the
I'll
4.
talk to one because Tom mentioned Giant Game in the
Yeah,
chat. So we like to talk about the horses that the
go ahead.
listeners are looking for.
Here's
And I looked at this horse. He was a tough one for me because I mean he's run in some quality company, and I mean you see he won the Cornhusker actually against Skippy Longstocking, who kind of came on towards the end of the year a bit. My question with him is, and I think it's a good question if you like this horse, is hey, he ran well losing to Gasoline and he was sort of pressing on the pace. Is it just the layoff? So now second off the layoff, he does have at least from a time form standpoint, he has a pace advantage. So if he can clear the other speed, he's good enough to hold. I mean, if you look at the Cornhusker, he set look at those fractions. He was setting some pretty good fractions and was able to hold. So again, I don't know if he's going to be able to hold off a horse like First Mission if First Mission is right, and especially because First Mission is tactical enough to stay close. But he's not a bad horse because anytime you can get the speed of the speed, who's shown he can hold at a distance, I don't think it's a bad play. Or shoot, he just maybe has to hold and hit the board, in all honesty. If you can get him on top and he holds and hit the board at double-digit odds. So, Tom, I don't think it's a bad play, especially maybe underneath.
No, it's not a bad play. It's just there's quite a bit of speed in this race, and these inside horses have to go. I don't envision Giant Game getting loose at all and holding off everyone else. But look, it's a tough race. It's one of the tougher Clarks I think we've seen in a while, especially from a pace perspective. Pete, let's go on to Saturday. There's 2 races Saturday that I'm bringing up right now. One is the Golden Rod. That's for the girls. The other one's the Kentucky Jockey Club for the boys. They're both points for the Oaks and the Derby next year. They're always fun races. There's picks on the bottom of the screen right now. Pete is going 8.75. I'm going 2.78. Paul's going 5.72. Let me bring it up on the screen here. Actually, oops, I wanted to bring up the Equibase. Sorry. Actually, I got to jump back to. Hold on, I'm screwing this up here. Let me get back to the actual day because usually we don't cover multiple days. So
it's not multiple days. Yeah.
Give me a
while
second.
you do that, I'll just say I thought this was actually my favorite race of the 5 that we looked at. I just thought, I mean, I think the Clark is a good race, but I thought this one has the winner of this race, unless it's some one crazy horse that you don't expect, the winner of this race is going to be really quality because some of these early, I mean, the early races for these, especially for West Sunset and Torpedo Anna, but even a few others, they've been some quality, man, and they looked impressive, and they look like that there's some real potential with these horses. So I'm excited for this one just because, like we said, this is aside from the Breeders' Cup juvenile fillies, this is a pretty big kickoff of some top quality horses heading towards the Oaks.
No doubt about it. And you already mentioned the 2 outside horses who are the favorites: Torpedo Anna for McPeak and Hernandez, and West Sunset for Cox, Pratt, and those wonderful Pink Silks of Gary and Mary West. And you're chalking out here. And I didn't think this was a very deep race, although I have a opinion that I hope is going to be clever. This is the first time I've seen the morning lines too, by the way. I don't know about yourself, but Torpedo Anna 8-5 has just been fantastic. I mean, what do you say in her 2 starts? The major question is, can she stretch out? That's really
although
three
races in three races in a month, basically. So that was the biggest question for me was that's pretty, even for McPeak, who's not afraid to do something like that. That's pretty aggressive in 3 races with a young horse. So that was my concern, but she obviously she didn't work. She worked up until the last race, and then we haven't seen her since. So I put her on top more just because she's been super impressive, but I don't think to me, it's more 7-8 or sort of 1A, 1B for me. And then there's some others who I think could also win the race.
I'm assuming Torpedo Anna, in your opinion, is going to sit off of West Sunset based on the early time form. West Sunset is absolutely faster. And Torpedo Anna also rated last time. So talk about a race that you think you know the pace. It sure looks like it's going to be 7-8 on the first turn. It looks that way on paper, at least.
Yeah, on paper for sure. There's not a ton of other speed inside of those horses. There's mostly come from behind horses. So you figure the 7 goes, and then Hernandez is going to have to make a call. What he wants to do, is he just going to sit off, or is he going to maybe try and get to the rail and settle somewhere behind? But
Yeah.
I think that little chess match right at the start, and Hernandez and Pratt, they know what the hell they're doing. So that should be interesting right away. And then we'll see if for some reason anyone inside goes and throws sort of a monkey wrench into that plan.
Here's my thought, Pete. And look, there's no doubt these are the 2 horses to beat. I mean, I'm not stupid. But you know what? 2-year-olds are 2-year-olds, man. We've just seen it over and over again. And I looked at the 2 real carefully, and when I watched the replay, I liked it even more intricate for Walsh and Gaffleone. A few things I want to mention. This horse is slower. I mean, obviously, right? And I don't know if you saw the time for him. Only got an 80 time for him last time.
That was actually what
higher, which I almost switched my pick just like that, because I have a lot of respect for.
That was my reason. That was the reason why I backed off this horse, because I like this horse too. But I backed when you're splitting hairs. That's a kind of a factor that can swing you one way or the other.
Here's my thought, though, Pete. That was a very slow pace last time. And she was involved, and she did it really professionally. And I know, sometimes we give each other hard times about trips and being in between horses and whatnot. And I'm not going to show the whole race, but Intricate was the 9 here who won, was involved in a very slow pace, and they were like bunching up. And this is very professional. She's in the green, if you could tell right here. And again, she's in amongst horses. Then there's a horse on the outside. You see where she is right here, like taking a lot of dirt. And I know people are like, Howard, what's the big deal? It is a big deal.
Well, then they're young. Like I laugh more about it when it's experienced horses, but when they're young and they're making their second start, then anything that's new or different is going to be tough for them to deal with.
Like right here is a tricky spot, right? She could have easily checked and got scared and steadied. She let the horse go on the outside. Right here, right here, if I'm betting the 9, I'm not real happy. See, she got shuffled back there. Okay, it was only like literally 10 feet. It makes a difference to me. Once she got to the outside, and she's 3 wide right here, legitimate. It doesn't look like she's really going very well. Once she got to the outside and got into the bridle, boy, she absolutely exploded and did it very well. Now, she's got to face she's right here. She's got to face much tougher horses, Pete, but she blew by this field. And I just like the visual. You know what I mean? I love the way she's finishing. She's doing it the correct way on the right lead. And again, the time and the fig is not real impressive, but look, he's pretty much in hand here, right? I mean, finishing really well. So this is very much a visual play for me. And here's my thought, Pete. At some time, and I think you would agree with this, at some time the 7-8 are going to engage, right? Whether it's probably not going to be early, probably on the far turn. And I'm hoping, for my sake, the Intricate is just sitting right behind, letting them battle, and then swings out just like we saw, and is as good as I think she is. I don't think it's completely implausible that this horse cannot go by those 2. I mean, the 7 horse, let me go back. The 7 horse won last time well, but that was in the slop. So maybe West Sunset prefers slop. And
she
then
looked good doing it, though. She did look good doing it, though. The 7. I really liked watching both her races. She looked really good, man. I just like you're talking about visually. I was like, boy, this one. That's why the 7 and the 8, when I looked at them both, I was like, oh, maybe when I watch the races, one will stick out more. And I was like, man, they both look fantastic. Just the way they pulled away, and they were professional. And I like West Sunset was I like the versatility. I mean, the first one, she came from the clouds. I mean, she was way back. And then in the last one, she just gets on the lead and dominates. The versatility is impressive. So but I do agree with you. It's not like they're so great that they can't be beat. And at those prices, why not take a shot?
And the thing about you nailed it on the head from her Torpedo Anna. Pete, we've seen this 1,000 times, especially with 2-year-olds. I don't like to say bounce because they're inconsistent in general, but she's coming back really quick without any works. And I totally understand why they're doing it. I mean, she's looked fantastic. That doesn't mean she's going to run great, this Saturday. So I have a few misgivings about actually almost more about the 8 than the 7 for some strange reason. I don't know why I feel that way. I just do. But anyway, we'll move on. I'm interested in the Intricate of the 2. If she sits in the pocket, I
Yeah,
think she's got a big shot. Central Avenue, real quick. Paul's
I
got
like
this
this
horse on
horse.
top.
Yeah, I like this
For
horse.
Godolphin. Oh, it's Godolphin. No wonder why. If it's not New York bred, it's got to be a Godolphin horse for Paul, right? But
It's
this
either a
horse,
curling Godolphin, or New York bred. He's right as rain, Paul. He's consistent as can be.
well, I'm sure if Paul was on the show, look, I mean, the horse just lost it, just FYI. I mean, so there's
And
form lines here. Central Avenue wouldn't shock me either.
honestly, my biggest concern, because I really like this horse, and my biggest concern was I just don't know I mean, she was in last in both races, but most of the way through. Although she was chasing pretty slow paces, which makes it more impressive the way she closed. But I don't know if there's enough pace in here for her to get up and pass him, unless some
That's my
weird
concern.
stuff happens. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think she's quality. I think the distance is only going to be her friend for sure. The debut field was kind of soft, but still, when you're closing from last into those kind of fractions as a young horse, I like that. So again, she's going to have to move forward. But and when we talk about time form, this one goes the other way, where time form gave her last race a 97.69. That puts her right below the top two if it was more of like the 77 buyer range. So quality horse, I like it for sure. I think this is a good race, man. I think these are just some good horses.
It just feels like it's not as obvious as 7-8 in this race to me. And there's very likable horses. And like you said, it's a great race. My gut feeling on the 5 will move on. She might be better next year. I just, based on her breeding, I'm not saying she can't win Saturday, but I think the pace scenario is really going to hurt
She's
her.
going to need when there's more speed in the when there's other good speed, and maybe when we get bigger fields with more speed in it, I think that'll be, or they figure out a way to get her in the mix a little earlier, which is tough.
They could have centered the Demoiselle, which is a 1.125 at Aqueduct, which you'd think would be better for closers, and they decided to go here where there's points. So I think it's a vote of confidence if you like Central Avenue, the 5. Let's go on the last race, Pete. The Kentucky Jockey Club. Here it is on the screen. Let me go ahead and switch the banners as well. There's our picks on the bottom of the screen from the three of us. This is the next race on Saturday, race 11, $400,000 points for the Derby. For the boys, it's a field of 8.
We're all over the board a little bit here. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
We are. No, we are. Moneyline favorites, the number 7, Risk It, for Asmussen and Tyler G. We are all over the board here. I thought it's a tough race. I'm 376. Paul's 714. You're going 162. You're going with Awesome Road for Cox and Pratt from the rail. Real good first time out, not so good second time. But he can bounce back and run big Saturday.
Yeah, you kind of hate that, don't you? Because you don't know which one was right, especially because the clunker came after the stretch out. So that's always a concern for me. But I didn't like this race that much. I thought, not that I didn't like it. I thought it was relatively even. I didn't have a strong opinion, I should have said, in this race. And I looked at this one and go, okay, if we can get back to the debut and the distance is fine, which breeding wise, the distance doesn't look to be an issue. It's just that last race. I don't know what the hell happened. So
Pete, let me interrupt you because
please.
I think I do know what happened because
okay.
I was right. I was ready to pick this horse. Watch the first 10 seconds. I think I made it. So he was on the lead or close to the lead last time in the debut. He's probably more of a speed horse, right? Watch real carefully because I think this is the reason why he is I think he's the 2 or the 3. He's the 3. I'm going to let you just watch and you tell me who you see. He's the 3. He didn't break great and he sort of got checked and steadied. And I think he got discouraged. But I'll let you watch it and you tell me what you think. The 1 is the Wine Stewart. The 3 is Awesome Road.
Oh, yeah, he definitely didn't break clean.
But watch coming up here.
Let me see here. Yep. Yeah, and that's new to him. I mean, what's happening there between the kickback, the little bit of a steady
his head carriage.
See how he kicks wide. No, yeah. And I thought I watched this replay, but maybe I just watched it and wasn't focused enough. It was late, but I agree with you.
I just think this is just a real beast being a big baby, literally. And
yeah.
then this action right here coming up. I mean, you could make the argument that he should have run better after that, but this is for a 2-year-old. That's a lot of adversity.
But that can take you out of it. That can take a young horse out of it. I do like what Tom said too. Is since that race, he's been working. He's been increasingly working strong, and maybe that means that So good call, Tom. Maybe that just means that, hey, that was the outlier, and now we're going to get back. And if you can get a horse who looked as good as he did on debut, and you can get a horse as the second choice, where you go, crap, how did I let this horse pay, whatever, $8 or whatever he's going to wind up paying? Then you sit there and go, okay, I'm glad I took that. Yeah, Pratt staying on. I like that too.
Yeah, he's got distance questions to answer, but the breeding certainly says.
That's what the breeding didn't say. Yeah, the breeding was sort of, it looked good, but that doesn't guarantee anything. But so where'd you go? You went to 3.
Real Men Violin. This horse feels a lot like Red Route 1, Pete. This is like This is like.
Wait, you want to laugh? You know what my first comment is, hard to know what he's best at. Turf, wet, fast. And that's similar to Red Route 1. Red Route 1 has sort of done a little bit of everything. You just don't know what he's good at. So I'm with you.
I'll tell you what I do know. I do know this horse can close, and there's not a lot of close in this field. I'm not concerned about fast dirt because he's worked well on it, very well on it, and McPeak knows what he's doing. And McPeak doesn't run back horses that quickly. I'm like you. I don't have a strong opinion in this race, but I don't really love anyone. And so I wanted to go a little bit of a price. I'm not going to show the last replay, but he did save ground, Real Men Violin, but he did it like in hand. And Hernandez sort of, how do I put this? He was a bit cautious with him. He's got a little rail and roll with him too. Like these McPeak, like 2-year-old closers, I'm infatuated with. I do know why. They've been good. They've been good to us. That's why.
Yeah, they're good.
So I'm not going to carry on. I just think there's enough speed in this race. He's got 2-turn experience. He's already ran 5 times, but I think he's improving. And I do like that about this horse. You've got the 6 Stretch Ride, who I looked at very carefully. I have this horse 3rd. He ran fantastic last time. And I'm going to show that. But speaking of Stretch Ride, the stretch run, Pete, I didn't love. And I'm going to show it. But I loved everything about this horse except for the last 15 seconds of the race.
Okay. Go ahead. Fire away. And it's funny too, because this horse was a $5,000 purchase out of Street Sense and a Quality Road mare. So that's a little concerning right off the jump. But I'll wait till we watch the end here.
Between again, this is a huge effort, and it's hard to do this. He's in the West Point Silks. He's getting pressure on both sides, Pete, the entire way, which, as you correctly mentioned, for a 2-year-old especially, is not easy. And then so he wards off the 2 horse who was a bomb, and here comes the favorite who's outside and wards him off. I don't like the lack of a lead change. Now I'm sounding like Matt Bernier, but just watch Pete. I just don't like this visual. I'll let you know.
It doesn't look good. He doesn't look good at all coming down, but it doesn't look good and still kicks away. So that's one of those we do the ifs, ands, and buts. We go, if this horse straightens out, but is this enough time for the horse to straighten those kind of things out in time to beat this field, which again isn't the best field, but it's better than he's been facing. So that's the concern. I have a quick Dale Romans 0 for 14 with 2-year-old graded stakes in the past 3 years on top. Wow. So that scared me a little bit off this horse on sort of the win end, aside from what you're talking about. Because I saw the same thing.
I would obviously use him. I mean, there's no reason why he couldn't improve though, right? Second time out.
No, for sure.
Well. I just that's sort of like why I like Intricate, right? Like Intricate looks slower, the filly, but she did it professionally. Like I prefer that over this horse who hasn't learned his lessons yet. It's a preference of mine. It doesn't mean I'm right or wrong. It's just I'd rather have a horse that looks a little slower but is doing it well, rather than a horse that's all over the place.
Yeah,
but is supposedly fast, right? It's just my thing. Risk It can obviously win. You want to talk about the 2, and then we'll go and end the show.
Well, I was going to say, should we talk about Risk It just a little bit because he's the favorite? I mean, I don't even, I'm not even really sure what I don't like about this. I mean, I don't even have this horse in the top 3. I had it as sort of the next level down. I just thought he didn't come home very well, and it looks better that he lost to West Saratoga, who I don't particularly love anyway. And then that field hasn't come back all that great. Liberal Arts actually came back with a win in the Street Sense, but the rest of the field hasn't come back all that great. I don't know. What are your thoughts? You have this horse in second, so you like him a little more than me. For some reason, something turned me off that I just didn't like the horse, and especially at the 5-2.
Well, I've got him second because he could get loose and he also could be a lot better, right? I didn't love the visual of the Iroquois. I totally agree with you. We talked about that race a little bit, I think last month, but he's been off, more than 2 months now, which I actually like. So it's Winchell, it's Asmussen. He's
Yeah.
got a lot of speed. What if this horse is able to shake loose or if he improves speed? I just think I like him a lot more than Stretch Ride even though again, on paper, he looks slower. I didn't look at the time form of I think the 6 got a good time for him. The 90s, actually not a great time
No,
for
he
him there,
didn't get a
Pete.
good
So,
time
and
for him. No,
I'm
no.
looking at that, and I want to thank you for that because I didn't used to look at the time form very much at all. Maybe because it's it's almost like oh, now it's going to change my mind. I think I do need to look at other speed figures more, and I
I
do look
just
at
look
time
at it
form.
more for the swing. I like to
Well, I
see if
look
there's
at
a
it
big
for early
swing.
and late, Pete. So why wouldn't I look at the final one? Like that's just thinking, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I
well,
agree.
I've started to look at that more, and I appreciate your insight on that because I think it does matter, and we'll see if it matters. But anyway, I think this horse is very likable. He costs
Sure.
500,000. So that's my thought. Did you want to mention the two, and then we'll wrap it up, Pete?
Yeah, I thought the two. I just sort of liked that last race a bit. Again, you have a horse who in both races was way too far back, almost basically in last. Last one was chasing a relatively slow pace, even though it says it was a sloppy track. Even though it said it was favoring closers, but the leader, the horse who won, Otto the Conqueror, just got away. So there was no. That was one of the races where you weren't catching the speed horse. So I just think there's a little bit of improvement on the time form and the buyer. There was some improvement there. So I just thought, hey, you know what? Maybe this horse, especially with the stretch out based on the breeding, might like the stretch out, is a closer. If we can get some speed up front, I think this one at a price either can maybe sneak out a victory or at least hit the board and give you something decent underneath. Oh, you're on mute, by the way. Well, you had to do that for Paul. Since
Yeah,
Paul
I
wasn't
just had
here,
some
we
coughing
had to
too.
do
Sorry
that
about
for
that.
Paul. That's all good.
Thank you. That's a very I don't usually make that. That's usually I'll allow that for Kyle usually makes those kind of I'd like to think after how many 311 I don't do that too often.
Yeah,
Um it's a pretty wide open race, Pete, and
it
so
is.
yeah, I think there's a lot of ways you can go. The last thing I'll end with before we say our goodbyes, once again, appreciate everyone watching and listening as a replay or watching as a replay. Again, as of this is breaking news as of 4:30 Central Standard Time Wednesday when we're filming right now. Tomorrow, Thursday, Thanksgiving, the Cardinal Stakes will be on the turf at Churchill, but races 2 and 6 are going to be off the turf. Turf races Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Cross our fingers, pending. We all like it to be on the turf, but we shall see. Pete, really appreciate it, man. It was good to have Kevin Kerstein on from Churchill
Yep.
Downs. We'll have to get Darren Rogers on next time, who's also was media relations director for Churchill. And I'm excited about Turfway. And as I close here, Pete, and I'll thank Paul, but listen, we got a lot to be thankful for. And well, I'm starting to feel verklempt for a second. I'll be all right. I'll get through it. I think I'm going to send out a mass email to everyone tonight on our email list. But man, we have a lot to be thankful for this podcast, and we're thankful for our viewers, of course,
Yeah,
our
that's number one, I
listeners,
think. Yeah.
number one for sure, our guests, and I'm thankful for you, Pete, and Paul,
Yes,
and
thank you.
everyone. Again, I could not do this show alone. I did it for a long time alone, and I did as best I could with it, and grew it to something I thought was pretty good. But obviously, with a bigger family now, and you guys, I consider you guys all family. Seriously, I really do appreciate. I love our time together talking about horse racing and
Great.
our times in person, and we got many more events coming up. God willing. But happy Thanksgiving to your wife and the Jackson. Is there a movie possibly online tonight with
We
Jackson or no?
we are no, we're saving it for Friday. There's always a movie, and
Okay.
there's always a movie in our
All right.
itinerary. So that's happening Friday night, actually.
Matt Miller gave Napoleon a B, as in boy, by the way, just to let you know. Just a little
The
insight.
trailer doesn't look bad, but I'm not excited. That would be one I would watch at home. I don't think I'd
Okay.
go to the theater to see, even though
All right.
it looks like a big screen might be. But B is what I've read or seen reviews of. It was a little underwhelming from what I've seen. So
Okay. Yeah, I'm a big Ridley Scott guy. But anyway, Tom Espinoza, thanks and happy Thanksgiving. Mike, happy Thanksgiving. Yes, absolutely. Make sure you do squeeze your loved ones for sure in this crazy world that we live in. Pete, appreciate it. Tomorrow now, for you early birds out there, and no one's working, of course, tomorrow. We are going to be back. Not Pete and I, but myself. I think Kyle's going to be joining me, Pete. There's a nice big pick six carryover tomorrow, Thanksgiving Day at Del Mar, of which our Benton Boost and friend Noah Maher will be at personally with his family because he's SoCal guy. They will be at the track, by the way, on Thanksgiving for Del Mar. But we're going to be here at 10:30 Eastern Thursday morning to go through the pick six sequence for Del Mar. So hopefully we'll have some people joining us tomorrow for that, or at least watching as a replay. Pete, I'll let you have the last word.
I don't want to say too much. I just want to say happy Thanksgiving to you, Howard, and to your family, and to all the listeners and viewers and everyone out there. I hope you have a safe and wonderful holiday. And the most thing we're thankful for is that you guys and gals listen to us drone on every week. And I mean, that's if we don't have anything else, we have that, and that's fantastic. So we're very thankful for that. But safe and happy holidays to everyone.
Absolutely. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Enjoy the turkey, the football, the friends, the family,
and the pick six hit. Yeah, and a pick six hit, hopefully.
That's as well.
That's
and
the best
pick five carryover at Fairgrounds as well. So
yes,
a lot going on. For my wonderful co-hosts, Paul Halloran, Pete Viska right there, I've been your host, Howard Kravitz, episode 311 of the HHH Racing Podcast. Join us again tomorrow morning, Thanksgiving Day, 10:30 a.m. Eastern for the pick six preview of Del Mar. Crush your bets at Churchill Downs this Thanksgiving weekend. Take care, everyone. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
If you have not followed his Triple H Horse Racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.